Hi, hello. Welcome to Unknown Reviews. If you're new to this channel, welcome. And if you're not new, welcome back. Thank you so much for sticking with me and coming back to see what's up. And yeah, so I'm going to be talking about something a little bit different today, and that is how to improve your writing style, how to improve your writing process, just everything in that realm. But more specifically, how to become your favorite artist, how to become your favorite writer, your favorite creative, insert whatever, label you want to put in there for yourself. So you may have heard of this concept or this phrase before. Basically, the concept is one of the quickest ways to grow as an artist is that you have to become your favorite musician. You have to love what you're doing so much and respect what you're doing so much to continue working at it. Now, the problem is that's all great, but most writers are insanely self-critical and rip their stuff to shreds. I am no different. Couple years ago, I couldn't even look, I'm not even joking, I could not even look at my own work without crying. I was it physically affected me. That's how anxious I was looking at my own work, because I was like, this is terrible. This is awful. So yeah, no, the self-criticism thing is very, very real for writers. So that the whole concept of how to become your favorite writer, it seems like maybe a little bit too good to be true, but it's not. It's not. And it's a really important thing to kind of grasp, because once I started adapting this kind of mindset shift, I was probably writing something new maybe once every few months. And now I'm writing something new literally almost every day. Three things that I'm going to kind of touch on here in terms of this mindset shift. So that's consistency, self-respect, and the last one, which is giving yourself a little bit more time. So the first thing about this mindset that I think is really, really important is consistency. And by consistency, I don't mean waking up every day at 3 in the morning and being on your grind set and getting 3 hours of sleep and being miserable and canceling all your social plans because, you have to write and you have to be in the studio or whatever. No, that's not what I'm saying. I don't do that. There are some people who do that, and it works for them, but I would say for most people, that just A, isn't going to work for their schedule or for their mental sanity, or B, that's just not, they're not built that way, right? Most of us are not tanks, let's be honest. What I mean in terms of consistency is that you are writing constantly. It doesn't necessarily even mean that it has to be good. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to fit into your album or that it's going to be a page in your story or in your poetry book or whatever. It just means that you are constantly interacting with your creative self on a daily, if not a weekly basis. What I started noticing with really successful artists, people who just seem so confident in their creative vision, is that writing, and I'll use music as the key example here, but it extends to all different kinds of writing. But since I'm assuming a lot of you that are watching are musicians, and I am as well, I'll keep it there. Music is what they do. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they're full-time at it, but music is what they do all the time. It's a part of their daily routine. They live it, they breathe it. Say they put out an album every other year. That is not all that they're writing. They're writing constantly, sketching ideas out constantly. Music is always playing in their head. They're always exploring, creating, being curious. Your favorite artist, you look at their finished products, even include their B-sides and their unreleased. There's probably 70% more of material under that iceberg that you will never see, and that no one will ever see. And it doesn't mean that that work wasn't good. That's just what these writers do. And so one of the biggest hurdles to that is time management. Lots of people are extremely busy. I am as well. And so again, I really want to stress, I'm not saying lose sleep, go crazy, because that, for most people, there's going to be a cutoff point to that. When I say write constantly, I mean you are fitting in writing literally wherever it can. And so, for example, if you have 10 minutes in your day of free time, or you have 20 minutes of free time in your day, you're writing. And it doesn't always have to mean pen to paper, but for example, for me, this semester has been extremely busy, right? I really wanted to write, and so what I started doing is I started writing my raps on the way to school as I was driving, because that was literally the only time that I had. A lot of my songs that are going to be on my upcoming project came from those drives. It was not a focused studio session, different things like that. And so then I wrote those, and then I kept those concepts tucked away until I had the free time to really continue to develop them more. And then there are some days where literally all I wrote was 2 lines, but I was still interacting with my creative self. And so that to me is a successful day. The importance of that idea of like constantly communicating with your creative self and being consistent with it is that you're just naturally going to improve. When you have a bigger data set of material that you've worked on, you can better kind of see A, like what styles fit you the best, and then B, kind of you can get a better sense of what your progression has been over time. I think one of the biggest mistakes that people make, and I've made it personally, is that they take their baby, you know, like whatever that is, whether it's, you know, like a song or an idea or a concept, and they're like, this is the best idea that I've had. It's incredible. Now I'm going to go work on this for 4 years and nothing else. As a newer writer, if you are spending all of this time on one project that is taking like forever and you're not writing anything else, you can A, get tunnel vision, and B, you can really kind of stunt your growth because you're only existing in one lane. Sometimes the biggest thing that you can do for that project that you care about is step away from it, or explore another style in something completely different, and then you come back with completely fresh eyes to your project and you see something about it that, you know, you would have never seen before had you not started being curious and experimenting with other styles, or just, you know, writing in other different lanes. So there's a lot more that I could say about that, but essentially what I want to say is that that consistency is so important, because I would say 70% of improvement is literally by doing. I wish it was more complicated than that because it would be more interesting to talk about, but it's literally, I would say 65 to 70% of improving in writing is just doing. Then the other 30% is, you know, talking to other people and watching courses and, you know, doing all of that consumption on YouTube of, like, you know, just the vast amount of information that's online. But most of it, whether it's literally practicing on the piano, whatever it is, it comes from doing. So consistency is a huge part of that. The other thing that I want to say about that, which is really important, and this kind of leads into my second point, is that you have to love it enough to be consistent with it. Now that, again, that's like not rocket science, but like really think about it for a second. Because if you don't love what you're doing, then working on it is going to feel so frustrating and so overwhelming. And then the project is going to, most times, end up not being exactly how you envisioned it or what you wanted it to be, because emotionally you're so checked out and drained from it. And then the creative process ends up like just not even being fun, right? So really think about whether or not you care about the thing that you're writing about. Because if you don't, move off of it. That's not failure. That's putting your emotional energy and your mental energy and resources towards something else that is going to work better for you in the long run. That's not failure, right? So if you have a track that is just not working, leave it alone. I think having that love and passion and belief in what you're doing is so important. I think about it in this sense. Like, think about a time where you were binging a show, right? And say it's like middle of the night, or say you had something that you had to do, or you were exhausted or whatever, but you're like, this show is so good and I'm having such a good time doing this that I cannot go to sleep. Like, you just forget about your body because you're so invested in what it is you're doing. That's not hustle. That's not anything like that. That's just passion and enjoying what you're doing. I try to take that same mentality to my writing. Say I get home from work and I am totally screwed. Like, I am just done for the day. I'm exhausted. Instead of feeling like my music is another task, that's what I go to get my energy, because whatever I'm working on interests me that much. Okay, so then the question is, how do I care about the things that I'm doing more, right? Like, maybe you don't find that what you're working on is worthy of that kind of commitment. So this is what I would say, and this is assuming that you're passionate about the idea, but you're doubting your execution and you think that, you know, you can't do it well. You have to respect yourself as an artist. if there is something that you're passionate about, whether it's a concept, whether it's a melody that you came up with, whatever it is, there was some part of you, and I call it the creative self, I view it as another part of me. There is some part of you that wanted to express that for some reason. And I think in order to make that project or idea come to life, you have to respect that part of yourself. Even if you feel like you can't do it well, or you can't do it to the best of your ability how you imagined it in your head. You have to respect that there is part of you that is trying to say something. And you have to get out of your own way and just allow that part of you to say it. In a lot simpler terms, this is what I mean. Whatever idea you had, whatever concept you had, there was a reason why you had it. Take that reason and dig into it and really investigate what that reason was for, right? There's this coach in the NBA. He's known as one of like the best coaches ever. His name is Eric Spoelstra. He coaches the Miami Heat. I was listening to JJ Redick recently. He's a former NBA player, and what he said about Coach Eric Spoelstra was that what makes him so great is that he takes his players and says, I value what you do really well, and I'm going to protect you from what you don't do well. What that kind of means for me in a music sense is that you have to value the reason for what you were, trying to express, whatever that might have been. Let's just say you are a more lyrically focused rapper, right? I'm using this kind of as like a self-example, but you can input kind of like where you're at too. So for me, I feel like I am a more lyrically focused rapper, right? I come from like a poetry background. I've been writing all my life, different things like that, right? Rap is something that I've just recently gotten into in the last couple of years. So from a performance standpoint and from like an entertainment standpoint, I don't have as much confidence there. I don't think that's my strong suit. I think my strong suit is writing really good lyrics and writing really good bars. So instead of focusing on the fact that, I might not hop on the mic and have the most dynamic performance, I'm not going to be like Stove God Cooks or something like that. Instead of focusing on that, now the way I'm approaching my tracks is I'm like, okay, how can I make this as lyrically and, narratively focused as possible? And so that goes directly into what kind of beats I pick, the instrumental that I'm going with, the length of the song, the mixing, everything. So that when I listen back, instead of me listening to the glaring weaknesses that I have because I put myself in a situation I wasn't prepared for yet, performance-wise, instead I'm like, wow, that line really shone out. Wow, I performed that line really well because I fit myself into an instrumental, into a style that served me better. That's not saying don't work on your weaknesses, but as a newer artist starting out, especially, if you feel like you need the confidence to keep going, you have to focus on what works for you, what you know is good. And if you're unsure whether or not it's good, start investigating, trying out some different styles to see what you gravitate towards most, and then take that thing and say, I am good at this thing. Like, have an unreasonable amount of confidence. Even if it is not, based in any sort of reality, just take that and just work with it and hone in on it like a lot. This is my personal opinion, but I think that it's pretty fair to say that a more dynamic writer or rapper or artist of any kind is someone who is really, really good at one thing to the point where they're better than like 85% of the people around them, rather than someone who is just solid and decent at everything, right? If you're solid at being a performer on the mic and your lyrics aren't really great, why don't you try to focus on honing in on that skill as much as you possibly can and make a really, really interesting performance out of it, rather than, clawing just to get to like a 5 out of 10 verse with a 5 out of 10 performance. I think that makes sense. If that does not make sense, I'll clarify in the comments. But what I'm saying is, better to be like interesting than just like passable, right? And like serviceable, right? Because ultimately at the end of the day, you can get really far on something that sets you apart from other people. And in the meantime, while you're doing that thing that already is more natural to you, on the back burner, you can continue to work on different things, like, your lyricism or whatever it may be. I think of Conway the Machine, for example. Back in like 2017, 2018, he started trying to sing, and he could not sing. It was not working. But he kept trying, you know, and it was just kind of like, okay, it's very clear that you as an artist want to incorporate this into your tracks. Now, what he did, though, is that he was not singing on every single track. He was being one of the best lyrical rappers and performers in the game, and he was just doing what worked for him. But there would be a track here and there back then where he would throw in like a hook, or just something where, you know what, it did sound kind of shaky, but he just kept working at it. Now, you go listen to his new album, you listen to the sung hooks on that, they're really solid. And it's not like, oh, Conway's singing, it's just like, oh, Conway's singing. Like, that's he integrated that into his musical identity now, and it's just part of who he is and what he does, because he just kept working on that in the background instead of just like flashing it in front of everyone and saying, hey guys, I'm really bad at this and I'm trying to get better and you guys all have to sit through it. Like, no, he kind of like made us sit through it for like 2 or 3 tracks while he's working on other things. I hope this point makes sense. I think it does. Basically what I'm saying is, go with your strengths first and work on your weaknesses like in the background when you get the time. And eventually, if you're consistent, and if you are pairing that with, you know, consistency, you will naturally get better. And the last thing I want to say about this when it comes to respecting yourself, right, is that it's going to be easier to respect yourself if you're working on your strengths already, right? That's kind of self-explanatory. I think that would be my second thing, and that kind of leans more into what I mean when I say become your favorite artist or your favorite rapper or whatever. You're honing in on something that you really enjoy, A, and B, you feel like you're pretty decent at, right? And, you know, when I say favorite, I'm using that term loosely, but you're kind of like, yeah, no, I can listen to my own track and say that was good. Like, that should be kind of like the marker, right? You can listen to your own track and say, I did a cool thing. And that's it. That's it. So yeah, that's number 2. And then I think the last thing, and this kind of pairs with both consistency and respecting yourself more as an artist and kind of, you know, really honing in on your skills, is give yourself time. Like, seriously, give yourself more time than you even think that you need. Some of the biggest artists out, right? Yes, there are some outliners, but for the most part, their first album was not their best. A lot of times their second album wasn't even their best, right? And so I think maybe for this criteria, you know, consider people who have like 6, 7, 8 albums. A lot of times their first stuff was not their best, even if it was good. And not to mention, for most people, their first project that was released to the public, that was not the first thing that they wrote. You know, like Conway the Machine has been rapping for like 30 years, ever since he was a kid. You know, we just didn't hear it. You know, like Billy Woods, it's got Supercron Flight Brothers, I hope I got that name right, in like 2003 on Spotify. Like, people have been doing this for a really long time, so give yourself time to just develop. And in the beginning, you're not going to be great, for the most part. But hopefully, you know, there's little nuggets of like, oh, wait, that was a cool thing, that was a cool line. Say you're writing a verse, and there's 2 lines in there that you're like, you know what, I like that, that's cool. And everything else, you're like, no, that doesn't work. Okay, you still did something cool. You know what I mean? And just take that and own that. And then, you know, maybe the next verse that you have, you get a nice set of 4. And it's like, I can kind of work with that. Just, I think being patient with yourself is such a key thing. And another thing that I want to mention with that is be patient with yourself when you're showing your art to other people. And by the way, if you're not doing that, there's no way around it. Like, I kept my art to myself for like 3, 4, 5, 6 years. It's almost impossible. Like, as a newer artist, it is impossible to grow if you're not showing it to people who will genuinely, A, give you opinions that they think are, you know, constructive and, you know, are with the right intentions in mind. But B, also, like, showing it to people who will literally just be your hype man. Like, you need both. You need, like, the unreasonable confidence, and you also need people who are going to be a little bit more critical. It's important to give yourself time when you're going through that process, because it's a very vulnerable time. It's a very, very vulnerable time. A lot of people, when they're writing, there's some aspect of the music that is very personal to them. For most people, it's very personal to them. So to share that with other people and then have it be picked apart, you know, not in a malicious way most times, but just in general, it's going to be picked apart. That is a very awkward and painful and strange process for most people, especially depending on the subject matter. So it can be stressful. You know, it's unavoidable, but it can be stressful. And I think if you just give yourself time, keep with it, try to be really selective about who you kind of let into that inner world of, you know, like people who you trust their opinions the most when it comes to art. Like there's people that I know who I'm close with personally, and it's not like they would say something wrong, but I just know, like, I'm not gonna get the best feedback from them. That's just not what they're there for. That whole process, it takes a lot of time. And there may be times where you think something is so cool, and you show it to someone, and they're like, nice. And that's it. That's all you get. And you're like, what do you, like, what else did you like about it? And they're like, no, it was cool. Good for you. You give you, like, a little pat on the head, right? Like, that will happen. And it can be deflating at times, but give yourself time. Give yourself time. Work through all the kinks, work through the times where it's a little bit embarrassing, all those different things. Don't be afraid to be bad. Inexperience is inexperience. It's as simple as that. But yeah, give yourself time, and trust me, it will work out. It will work out if you are consistent with it, if you are really, really investigating the reason why you want to write in the first place, and what is it that drew you, what part of you is trying to express something. Really think about that. And then 3, give yourself time. And you know, if you're patient with yourself, and if you treat yourself with, you know, love and kindness and all those different kinds of things, it'll work out. Don't worry. Don't worry. Don't worry. If you're still not convinced, right? I have been writing for probably 7 years, and there was probably like 3 years in there that I genuinely thought there was no way. Absolutely no way. I was like, this is just not working. These songs have been stuck on this computer forever, not going anywhere. I don't have the skills. I don't have the talent. I don't have the whatever. There was a time where I physically could not sing in front of anyone. This past semester at my college, I did like 3 live performances with full songs that I did. Does that mean I was the best singer in the world? Absolutely not. But I kept forcing myself to get out there, and I can even see the difference between the beginning of the year and now in terms of like my singing ability. I'm still probably like a 6.5 out of 10, but I was a 5 at the beginning of the year. And now I can sing in front of someone if they ask me to. It's little things like that it's like, it seems so hard, but it really is. A, doing it. B, you know, being kind to yourself. And C, completely forgot the third point that I was going to say, but whatever the third point was in the video. But yeah, so this is a little bit different than what I typically do, but I figured because of my lyrical analysis series and the fact that I'm pretty sure there's a lot of writers, who watch my videos, I figured I would give it a shot. Let me know what you think. These are kind of the things that I've been working through. I am no means an authority on this kind of thing. I'm just sharing some things that I'm literally currently learning right now. If you learned something here, if you like this video, definitely let me know, because these can come out a lot more frequently, because I'm really kind of just like, I'm just talking. And let me know if you like this kind of content. Check out my lyrical analysis videos if you haven't. It's also more, like writing analysis and writing process focused, but we're using actual like example songs. If you like this video, go check those out. Follow the channel. Yeah, I'm running out of words. I'm tired. I have an assignment due in like half an hour, so I'm gonna go. But thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. Be safe. Make good decisions. See you later. Bye.